All right, so we're diving into stepping outside of your comfort zone today. And
Yeah.
you know, it's funny because we're always told to do it right.
Mm-hmm.
Like, get out there,
Yeah.
take a risk, push yourself. But I think for a lot of people, it's kind of like, yeah, okay, but like, why?
Right.
Like, why should I actually do that?
What's in it for me?
What's in it for me
Mhm.
exactly? And that's what we're going to kind of look into today
Absolutely.
with this stack of research that you brought.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the first things to consider is what even is a comfort zone, right?
Yeah.
We talk about this phrase, but what does it really mean for people in their everyday life? And
I think for me, like, I immediately think about like physically getting out of my comfort zone.
okay.
Like going and doing something I've never done before, like rock climbing or,
Sure.
skydiving or something like that.
I see what you're saying. Yeah. And that certainly fits. But it can be a lot more subtle than that, too.
Okay.
So it could be something like, trying a new recipe or taking on a new project at work that you've never done before, or even just like you were saying, speaking up in a meeting when you normally wouldn't. So it really covers like a whole spectrum of experiences.
So it's like anything that's like unfamiliar or
Yeah.
makes you feel kind of like, ooh, I don't know.
Vaguely, that little hesitation,
Yeah.
that feeling of like, ooh, maybe not.
That's like the signal that you're at the edge.
Right, you're bumping up against that boundary.
Okay, so then the whole idea of stepping outside the comfort zone
Mm.
is to basically do those things
Yes.
that make you feel that way.
Precisely.
But then like we were saying earlier, it's like, okay, but what's the point of all that?
Right, well, that's where all this research comes in.
Okay.
And it really highlights some pretty amazing benefits.
Like what?
Well, one of the biggest ones is personal growth.
Okay.
And this makes sense, right? Because when we challenge ourselves,
Yeah.
we learn new skills,
Yeah.
we gain new experiences, and we essentially expand our capacity for what we can handle.
And that's where that study that you pulled comes in about, people who are willing to be uncomfortable,
Yes, exactly.
being more innovative.
Yeah, there was a University of California study
Yeah.
that found that individuals who actively sought discomfort in their work were 30% more likely to come up with innovative solutions.
That's huge.
It's significant, and it really speaks to the power of pushing past those self-imposed limitations.
So you're saying if I want to be more creative, I should intentionally make myself uncomfortable.
It's not about seeking out discomfort for the sake of discomfort, but rather about recognizing that growth and innovation often come from those moments when we stretch ourselves.
Okay, so it's more about like not shying away from things just because they feel a little bit scary.
Exactly.
I don't-
Embrace the
no.
challenge.
Okay.
Now, another key benefit that comes up a lot in the research is resilience.
Okay. Resilience. And so what is resilience exactly?
So resilience is essentially that ability to bounce back from setbacks, to adapt to change, and to keep going even when things get tough.
So it's like not giving up easily.
Exactly.
Okay.
And one of the sources, you had this really great book on resilience,
Yeah.
emphasized that this ability is built through experience.
Through like facing challenges.
Exactly, through facing those uncomfortable situations and learning to navigate them.
So it's not something you're just born with.
Right, it's a muscle that you build over time.
Okay. But I mean, let's be honest. Like sometimes discomfort just feels bad.
Oh, absolutely.
Like, I don't want to be uncomfortable all the time.
No one does.
So is there like a balance?
There is, and it's funny you mentioned that because there's actually a psychological model called the Yerkes-Dodson law
Okay.
that talks about this.
Sure.
And it basically suggests that there's an optimal level of stress
Okay.
that can actually enhance performance.
So like a little bit of stress is good?
Yeah, a little bit of pressure can be motivating. It can help us focus, and it can lead to better outcomes.
Oh.
But too much stress, on the other hand, can be overwhelming, and it can actually lead to a decline in performance.
So it's like finding that sweet spot.
Exactly. So
Okay.
it's not about constantly being in a state of panic,
Right.
but more about intentionally pushing ourselves just beyond what feels easy.
Okay. So it's like that Goldilocks zone.
Exactly.
Not too little, not too much.
Just right.
Okay.
And that's where the growth happens.
So we've talked about growth. We've talked about resilience. What about continuous learning? You mentioned that earlier.
Yeah.
And one of your sources, this article on innovation, talked about how stepping outside our comfort zones can actually spark that.
It's all about perspective.
Okay.
When we're constantly surrounded by the familiar,
Yeah.
our thinking can become limited.
And we get stuck in a rut.
Exactly.
Okay.
But when we expose ourselves to new experiences,
Mm-hmm.
different viewpoints,
Yeah.
novel ways of doing things,
Okay.
it opens up entirely new avenues for learning and creativity.
So it's like, if I want to learn something new, I have to like get out of my comfort zone to do that?
In a way, yes.
Okay.
Because you have to be willing to try things that you might not be good at,
Right.
to make mistakes, to be a beginner again.
Okay. And that can be uncomfortable.
It can be, but it's also incredibly rewarding.
So, like, what are some examples of that?
Well, think of a chef who experiments with a new cuisine,
Okay.
or a musician who collaborates with artists from a different genre.
Yeah.
It's that willingness to step outside their usual boundaries that leads to those aha moments, those moments of discovery and innovation.
So it's not just about the individual skills we gain,
Right.
but also about, like, expanding our mental models
Absolutely.
and becoming more adaptable to change.
Exactly. And that's incredibly relevant in today's world,
Yeah,
where
totally.
things are constantly evolving.
Yeah, for sure. So it sounds like this whole comfort zone thing is kind of a big deal.
It really is. It has implications for all aspects of life, from personal development to professional success and even societal progress.
So, like, what can people do, like, starting today to, like, actually step outside their comfort zone?
That's a great question, and I think the key is to start small,
Okay.
to identify one thing
Yeah.
that you've been hesitant to try, but that, could lead to growth.
So, like, what would that be for you?
That's a good question.
What have you been putting off?
I've always wanted to try improv comedy,
Really?
but I've always been too scared to actually do it.
That's awesome.
So maybe it's time to finally sign up for a beginner's workshop.
That's a great idea. And it's funny because I've been wanting to take a pottery class.
Oh, cool.
So maybe we should both do it.
Let's do it.
Okay, awesome. And for our listener, it's incredible how even just talking about this can spark action.
It really can.
So what will your first step be?
Don't wait. Start today.
Exactly. Get out there and push those boundaries.
You might surprise yourself with what you can achieve.
And remember, growth often begins with a single step outside that comfort zone.
You got this.
See you next time.
See you later.